Why do we do all this working out stuff anyway?
Every man has his own reason, probably, right?
Yeah.
But I do find it interesting that the guys who are really there to, try and get strong, look good, and be like super fit, sometimes those guys wash out,
Yeah.
because they'll get a good workout. And if they were just getting off the couch, it's a great workout. And it might be even, a super good workout for them for a couple years or so, to get them some consistency. And then sometimes they just are like, I'm moving on to something else because, I was here for the fitness and the fitness just isn't the same what I want now. And, it is not easy to build vanity muscles in F3. It's just not. You can get strong, right? But I'm not going to be, this unless my body is already kind of predisposed to be that way, and mine is not. Mine is supposed to be a fat kid. That is what I'm predisposed to.
My mom always said he's a little huskier than the other boys.
That's right. What's really ironic about it, Plague, is until I was probably like, I don't know, maybe mid-20s ish, like I could eat anything.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened somewhere in there, got married. I don't know, maybe like whatever mechanism it was in my brain that was like, you don't have to work so hard anymore, buddy. But I never worked out. I never did anything. I was active, I did sports and, worked out like that kind of thing. But I never like worked out. I've never had, well, except in wrestling, but that was like, I was just part of the deal, other than that, I never really had like a regimen to any kind of working out. But yeah, I think that guys do it for different reasons, but I think the guys that get in there and realize that really what we're doing is we're getting strong mentally and physically and spiritually, right? But it's a lot about being able to be functional, to be strong enough and mentally strong enough to do the things that need to get done in our lives. Like, I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was funny because I think as we're getting going, you said something about being on vacation.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, we were down in Key West and we were on our way back. It was funny, we're doing all this stuff around Zebra Jockey and Chaos and Edge Travelers. And here we are, our flight's supposed to leave at 7 and we were going to get home at noon or 1, which would have been great.
Okay.
We got to fly through the great state of North Carolina. But our flight gets delayed and they're like, now your flight's going to leave at 9. And then, a few minutes later, now it's not going to leave till 10. And so I'm like, okay, let's rent a car. I'm going to rent a car. So I leave to go rent a car. My wife's got our, 17-month-old.
Exactly.
Well, so my thought process was, okay, it's a 3.5-hour drive to Miami. I can get to Miami. We'll get on a flight there and then we'll get home. So I rent the car, I get in it and I drive literally, around the airport parking lot one time. And my wife calls and she's like, hey, I just looked, there are no flights out of Miami.
You may as well just lay on the tarmac here, buddy, and wait for the C5.
I am like angry, I'm like, what do you mean there's no flights? And the best part was I pull it back now I'm checking it back into the rental car place.
And they're like, weren't you?
The guy, I get out of the car and the guy just is laughing hysterically. He's like, oh, that was a short trip. Where'd you go? And explained it to him and he's like,
can I even charge you for this? I don't know. Like,
yeah, he's like, we'll just avoid the charge. And he was really nice about it. But
that's really cool. Yeah.
It was good that he was laughing because it made me realize how ridiculous I was being. But also then as I'm like walking back to meet my wife, I'm like, that was not a Zebra Jockey moment. That was a Edge Traveler moment, trying to really control that. But anyway.
That's fun. So I've had this idea for years now, because you're talking about traveling and you made me think of this. Like, I don't know what you would call it exactly, but you remember those World's Strongest Man competitions?
Yeah.
Right. And, they would carry these dumb things like irregular size, the Atlas stones and all this kind of stuff. All right. So check this out. It's all like practical fitness kinds of things that we would have to do like in normal real life. So the suitcase carry, right? But it would literally just be like 2 suitcases or maybe like 3 suitcases. So you have to like tuck one under your arm or something,
Yeah.
and you go for speed and distance or something, right? They're just full of rocks, whatever it might be, right? Or plates or whatever. So, you've got this super heavy, like crap you have to like run with and see how well you can do, right? Carry the luggage.
Yeah.
The family, you put a little family in a minivan, right? And you push them down the field, right? And so there's one guy in the back, like pushing, so you have to have somebody driving so you don't push it off of nowhere, right?
Right.
So, but essentially, you're pushing these identical cars down the field and like see who wins, like that kind of stuff, right? Like stuff that you might actually, I've pushed cars out of traffic,
Yep.
right? You've probably
Yep.
done that, right? Like
The
it's a thing.
suitcase one, you'd have to make sure one of the bags had a faulty strap that
Oh,
keeps,
yeah, yeah,
falling,
yeah, right, exactly, like a little trick strap, it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, no," you have to figure it all out. But yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be like wouldn't that be hilarious fun? That'd be a good seesaw.
I think it would be good.
That'd be a good
I've
seesaw.
always thought, when I have, like when if we ever get a big windstorm, normally we get a bunch of down trees and branches, and
Mm,
I'm like, I should just call the guys and say, "Hey, I'm leading a workout here. It's
let's
called
go.
clean up the yard,"
Yeah, right?
And actually a cool thing about F3 is if it was really a disaster or we had a tornado come through here a couple years ago, and the first guys to show up to help
Of
clean
course,
that up, of course, were
of
F3
course.
guys, but
We used to get, talked about all the time, guys, like, the Red Cross would be like, "Oh, they're here first,"
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? The police would let us through if they saw the logo,
That's super
We didn't
cool.
have any credentials, like, they would just, like they're like, "Oh, we know you guys, we know who you are."
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
but yeah.
and now you could have the logo on your shirt, or you could also have it on your feet,
It's
right?
funny that you were gonna say that because I was just about to make a similar sort of segue to and you know what would give you optimal performance in these disaster situations?
No, tell me more.
Mud gear socks, because
Eh,
life's too short to
to
wear
wear
crappy
crappy
socks.
socks.
If you're going to be a winner, you're going to need a coach.
Sharpening doesn't happen by accident. A blade left untouched will rust, and a man left unchallenged will stagnate. Every man needs friction, resistance, and a whetstone to grind away weakness and reveal his true edge. Welcome to the Whetstone, where we reject comfort, disrupt the status quo, and forge men ready for impact. Hosted by Dread, Dark Helmet, and me, the Plague. This is where men step out of the drift and into acceleration, because iron sharpens iron, and no man sharpens alone. And we're back.
We're back. Okay. So Malcolm did a big gear survey, right?
Yeah.
And the results came out and blah blah blah. So he actually just sent an email, and I don't remember if he did this in years past, but he sent out a big email saying like, "Hey, here's what you guys said we're doing well. Here's what you said we're not doing. Like you would love to see improvement in, and here's the things that we plan to do to change it."
That's awesome.
I thought that was pretty dope.
Yeah.
You know why that customer service is so high? Because he wants to remain the official sock of F3 Nation.
Right. Well, there's a lot of people knocking on the door to become
There are the official sock.
the official
Maybe
sock.
not as many. There's a lot of people that do knock on the door that want to be the official something or other.
Yeah.
There really are. I mean,
Yeah.
it is funny, but so okay. You also made me think, as we're talking through all this stuff, but like you were talking about edges and and whatever. And you said you were in Miami, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, Key
here's
West. Yep.
Key West. Okay. But or you were going to drive to Miami to try and find a flight. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But I was in Orlando just this past week, and I was down there to speak to a group of men and women. It was a company. All their general managers are a company that they do golf course management.
Oh, cool.
So like the local place, might own the course, and they might have like their marketing people or whatever. Like the event people might be local, people that are employed by the club, but everything kind of behind the scenes, all like the food and beverage and the landscape maintenance and all that kind of stuff gets managed, by this company, right? They'll install these people and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great company. I mean, they do a really, really kind of cool thing. But anyway, they are very decentralized. And so they wanted to have me come down and talk about decentralized leadership and how do you keep a culture strong and consistent and all that kind of stuff, like we do in a company that's spread out all over the United States, and everybody's kind of moving in their own direction a little bit. Like they've got that weird balance between accountability and autonomy, and how do you kind of manage that tension? But two things with that. One, we talked about being strong for the airport. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm in the Orlando airport and legit had like, I don't want to say like flashback, because it wasn't like a traumatic flashback, but I had memory of, this is true story. This is like my youngest was probably 2 or 3. So this is like, 13, 14 years ago. So this is pre F3. But yeah, but anyway, so we're going down to go on a Disney cruise. So we, flew down. We were going to, catch a boat and whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we flew into the Orlando airport, and I was standing in the budget rental line, and it was very full. Like, it was extremely full. And we're sitting there in kind of the back, and some dude comes running up and is carrying a bunch of stuff, like, dragging one behind him, got one in his hand, this kind of thing, right? One under his arm, right? But he was kind of a portlier fella. Okay. It's about to not get funny, so hold tight. And he comes up and he's running up, and you can tell he's super out of breath, red face, the whole bit. And he fell over.
Oh no.
And we thought, oh, he just tripped. Because he like ran up to the end of the budget line where I was standing, and then he kind of fell over. And we're like, oh, sir, and I was a little ways up in the line. So but there were people that were like, oh, can we help you? Gone. AED. They had to break the whole thing up. They the EMT finally arrived. They managed to bring him back to life and enough to get him out of there. And then apparently he did live. I had friends who had friends who worked at the Orlando airport, and they told me he made it. But long story short is that kind of thing. I mean, here's a guy, thinking that he's, now I'm not saying that one run was the, the thing that did him in, right? But that wouldn't happen to you or me.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Most likely.
Yeah. It is really interesting, right? Because there was a time in my F3 career where I was like, having a 6-pack was like a goal, and then you sort of realize like, well, that for what? Like, what do I do with that? And
so I can attract a woman.
Yeah,
not women, woman.
Yeah. But now, I think it truly is like, even just being able to pick your kids up, I think having 3 girls, like, pick them up and dance, right, is something they always want to do, or get down on the floor and play, I mean, I think just being able to do that stuff and not feel like I'm going to, fall apart, So, and now that I'm 40, it's just is,
you're a man finally.
Yeah, finally.
Right.
Finally. Yeah.
But I was thinking about it the other day. I was walking with my middle daughter through Hobby Lobby.
Oh.
She wanted to go. Look, I don't know. They see these things on the internet. I don't know. And she's like, Dad, I need to go to Hobby Lobby because I want to put buttons on these barrettes and make my own little craft thing. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, man. I'll go with you. Because you just wanted to spend time, whatever. So we're walking around there.
Yeah.
But we started talking, and we were like, look at all these fun things that I'll be able to do as a grandpa. Because my oldest is married, getting ready to graduate college, and said, as soon as we graduate, it's baby time. That's what she's been saying, right? So we'll see. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Anything can happen. But point being, right? Like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna be a grandpa. And we're walking around there, and I'm looking at all this stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna be a fit grandpa. Like, I'm gonna be able to like run these kids out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I hope she has boys, because I had 3 daughters, just like you, right? So we haven't been able to do certain kinds of things, and I've been holding it in. I hope she has boys, because I'm gonna just wear those little suckers out. Like, it's gonna be amazing. I'm gonna be like, why are you such wusses? Your father needs to be a man. No, I'm just kidding. I won't do that. But yeah, so I think it is interesting kind of to think of this, like, it's not just even functional fitness in the sense of like, I can open a jar better or something, right? Carry luggage, but like the longevity of it, I think is super important. And F3, to me anyway, does a couple of things. One is the physical health aspect of the workout and that kind of thing, but also the camaraderie in the community.
Huge. Yep.
That goes a long way to longevity.
Yep.
And that is huge. In fact, some would indicate that that's almost as important as the physical side of it. Having that community, having that tribe and that, that group to be part of.
Yeah. Well, and if you, in my history of addiction, right, there was some TED talk many years ago, and it's a research study called Rat Park, but they kind of do this study, right? They put a rat in a cage, and they've got a water bottle with cocaine or whatever, some substance in it.
Yeah.
And when he's by himself, he just keeps going back to it until he dies. When he's with a community, he actually doesn't. He gets drawn into the community. And I posted yesterday morning, and we got a local guy with a broken ankle who's kind of recovering. So we normally I would run before a workout, but I was like, yeah, I'll ruck with you, no big deal. And just the conversation that you have with a group of guys in the morning, like that's what I'm there for. I don't even need to go for the workout.
We accidentally just launched a new initiative. I can feel it. It's called Rat Park. That's it.
Oh, yes, rat that's
Right?
our next AO,
And
yeah.
if you're injured, like, so he's in my shield lock
Yeah,
and Maximus, and he just got surgery on his shoulder
yep.
and torn labrum, torn rotator cuff, and probably a lot of years of working too hard without going to the doctor and getting it checked sooner. But, who knows?
Yeah.
We're men. What are you gonna do? But anyway, so he went and had surgery, but he has been coming out and just walking. If he does it by himself, fine. This past Thursday, I felt like I had eaten too much, and so I felt like I really needed to run. So I went with the boys, and we covered our kind of 3.5, 4 in our workout. But the other guy in our shield lock was like, "I'll ruck." Like, yeah, I'm good. So
Yeah.
they went and rucked, and it's just that's it, man. The walking wounded, right? We're gonna call it Rat Park, and every AO has to have a Rat Park part,
There
right?
you go. Yeah,
I
we
think
used to
that's
we used to try to call it bruisers, right? Or we'd say we have a
sure.
bruiser-friendly workout, but
Yeah.
I like Rat Park.
Yeah. Call it, and I would say this, call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I think, as we're talking about it, that is a thing that some places do really well and have, consistency in, and some don't. And the ones that don't, I think what we tend to see is this, drastic fall off. I would say this, and I understand that a guy would feel less inclined, so I'm injured. I don't have to be out, at that hour, even if I want to walk, whatever. Right? And it would be really easy to just go, I can't really do anything anyway. What am I supposed to do? But I know a guy, or I don't know him, but I knew of a guy, right? Heard about this guy down in Cherokee, Georgia, who, he was, he was injured, and I can't remember what the injury was. Anyway, but he made it a point to show up at his AO every day that it met, right? He was there with a flat top cooking bacon.
Nice.
And guys would come back at the end and eat bacon.
Yep.
And he just became bacon guy. Like that was his deal.
He was being
Until
the
he
bacon.
was well enough again to start walking and that kind of thing. I'm sure they missed the bacon, but they were probably glad to have the guy. But that's the point to me is like, stay engaged, right?
Yes.
Whatever you have to do, stay disciplined, stay engaged. Maybe you can't do the same things, but we get way too caught up in this kind of egoism and this sort of, no, but if I can't do the full thing, then forget it. Dude, I'm out there right now. This is a true story, right? I'm out there on Thursday trying my best to keep up with guys who I'm old enough to be their dad.
Yeah.
And I'll just go ahead and tell you, it ain't easy.
Yeah. Right.
And I can't do it.
Yep.
And I've noticed over the 12 years of F3, like, started out fat, so couldn't do anything, got fit, was really, really kind of, and I was charging hard and out in the front, and I could keep up with the 7-minute mile guys, for the whole workout, and we would do the whole thing. And then as I've aged, like, it's like, just kidding.
Yeah.
And I'm watching these other guys catch their wave, and I'm kind of feeling a little bad about it sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hate being in the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Like, that drives me insane.
Yeah, but it's so good for us, right? I mean, I think to, and even in the context, rucking, like, I post, I currently only post 3 days a week. Those are the days I normally get in my miles to run. But you know what? I value my relationships over my running miles, and so, like, if a buddy of mine's hurting and says, hey, I just need to go for a walk or a ruck, or like, that's to me, like, I'm going to prioritize that, because he's in my concentrica, right? My abs are not.
My Strava's not. My
Yeah.
abs are not. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
they kind of are. I mean,
yeah, maybe in a way.
they are attached to you. But it also occurs to me, just as we're talking about it, we say, look, come for the fitness, fine, but and that longevity piece. But as I was saying, we totally left out the faith longevity piece.
Exactly. Yep.
And that is that, again, the studies show, right? So if you just have fitness, adds to your longevity. If you just have fellowship, adds to your longevity. If you just have faith, people of faith tend to live longer, tend to make better choices, so on and so on, right? So if you bring all those things together, then I think you have a much better chance at longevity, but also a much better quality of life along the way, right?
Yep. Yeah,
That's sort of the deal.
I know, and we maybe mentioned him here. I've mentioned him in a COT, but Arthur Brooks. I don't know if you heard of this guy. He's like a
The name's familiar.
Harvard psychologist, and he focuses on happiness. And even he says, like, the 3 ingredients to happiness are basically like purpose, community, and then he uses the word faith, but he's a Christian, but he's not similar to
Yeah.
F3. He's sort of like, you just
Like,
got to believe in
whatever you believe in.
yeah. And I think, and we've been talking about within the Whetstone this idea of like navigating that chaos. And I know for me, like those key relationships, whether it's a stone or whether it's a shield lock, or even just having conversations with my M, like I think just like talking through those things out loud certainly helps me identify like, oh, I'm getting pulled into the chaos, and oh, you're trying to rent a car and drive to Miami when you should just be staying put. I literally
Right.
had that picture of my mind of in my mind of Dredd just sitting there like, I'm gonna hang out. I'm just gonna
No, he's like,
and here,
I had my ball cap pulled over my eyes and my feet up while Plague is, zooming around the parking lot going, surely there's a way.
I just rented a Prius so I could drive to Miami, But anyway, I am curious because we've talked about this like flow edge traveler thing. We've
Right.
also our most recent episode. I think I like how we kind of brought in the faith piece, sort of like those recognizable commands. And I was just listening to Art of Manliness puts out good stuff, and they just did a show on purpose. And
Somebody just sent that to me. I haven't listened to it, but
I think it was pretty good. Essentially, they're talking about I would say similar. I feel like they listened to our episodes and then tried to copy it, which is
probably
fine. No, I'm kidding. But essentially, they were talking about your purpose being something that guides how you channel your energy, which made me kind of think, okay, somehow all the conversations we've had about mission and effectiveness, I can use those to navigate the chaos, I think. But I don't know, like, how does that work?
Yeah. No, that's a good a good thought, actually, because so speaking again, timely, of this trip to Orlando that I made. So I was down there talking to them, and they were saying, how do you manage decentralized, organization, all this kind of stuff, right? And I was like, okay, so here's the deal. The trick is this, and it's just what you're saying, Plague. And I think this is true of life, right? I said the problem is you've got this wonderful now. The mission that they have stated on their website is a little more externally focused. It's kind of like what the mission that they feel like they want to put out to the world, but they don't really have don't really have a mission for the internal. Like what do we do? And so I kind of gave them the because each property almost operates somewhat independently of the home office, right? And so I kind of gave them the example of AOs and kind of how we operate, where I don't tell you in Omaha what your workout's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I don't even tell you how to structure your local region necessarily. Like I can give you kind of best practices, what we've done. If you find something better, please let us know. Right. But what I was telling was is that the key to it, and this I think is the key to it in your life and everywhere else, is if you have a common mission, the way I described it to them, this isn't quite F3 language, but I think it was useful for them, right? Common mission, individual purpose. And the analogy I gave them was the kind of the movie credits analogy, which I think I've talked about before, where like, everybody on that screen that rolls by at the end, their mission is make the movie. Like that's the common mission. That's my mission, make the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the guy in, special effects has a slightly different mission within that or a slightly different purpose within that versus, costume wardrobe, right? Versus whatever, right? Makeup. Like they all have different they have different purposes toward that common mission. And so I think that's really I think that's key. And I don't remember your exact question now, but I think that's key in terms of keeping your family aligned, keeping your F3 region aligned, keeping your business aligned, keeping your life aligned.
Mm-hmm.
All those things is having that common mission, having and again, we can get caught up in jargon or, minutia over the words, right? I don't want to get off track because we're using different words, right? But having some sort of North Star aligning purpose, mission, whatever you want to call it, right? That gets you on the same page.
Right.
Right.
Well, and yeah, and one of the quotes that they said was essentially purposeful people have less activation in a part of the brain that relates to conflict. So essentially, if you have your
Huh?
mission or purpose well defined, you are less conflicted because you know what to do. You don't just find purpose, you become purposeful. And I
Yeah.
thought, man, we have certainly talked about that, right? Like if I'm clear on what it is that I do here, what I'm here for, then I spend less time getting, then I guess I can identify the things that are chaos easier or
Yeah, I think so. I think you identify and you realize which ones you need to worry about, which ones you don't.
yeah.
So again, kind of along these same lines, right? So at the end of the talk, it was a 2.5 hour kind of workshop-y session, right? So I spoke for, I don't know, hour and a half of that, and then for about 45 minutes, because we had a little break, for about 45 minutes of that, I workshopped for them, and we talked about um, kind of the mission formula, right? Task and purpose, right? We talked a little bit about that and what that looks like. But the example that I gave them, I asked one of the general managers of one of these properties. I said, "So what's the crappiest job?" I don't think I said crappiest. I think I said most entry level. I think that's the way I said it. But basically, what's the crappiest job at the golf course? And they were like, "Oh, cart kid." And I said, "Okay, well, what's the duty of a cart kid?"
Mm-hmm.
And you go, well, they have to turn the carts or flip the carts is what she said. I said, they like flip and she was like, obviously, right. No, but you got to get in there. You got to clean them up, wipe all the beer off or whatever, all the,
Yeah.
this kind of thing. And one guy was telling me a story because one of the things we talked about, because I gave him vape and the 5 C's as part of the talk. And so, we were talking about contentment. Right. And I was saying, now I imagine on the golf course, everybody stays like super calm and nobody gets upset and everybody is like so peaceful. You're out in nature, obviously I'm kidding. Right.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, that's why we come back with like, 9 irons wrapped around their GPS module on the cart, like people are so pissed off, like whatever. Right. That's and, so cart kid has to deal with all that.
Yep.
Right. So it could be angry people. It's like, corralling these carts, it's pulling them from wherever, if something's wrong with them, I mean, you got to fix it, whatever, all this kind of stuff. So you're flipping the carts and you're doing all this stuff. So, okay. So that's the most miserable, entry level
Yeah.
position that there is. I said, now, if you hire cart kid and you go, cart kid, here's your list of duties, clean the cart, do this, unwrap the 9 irons, right from the, right, whatever, all this kind of stuff. And we'll pay you $10.50 an hour. And, it's not bad. You get to hang out all day and you get, a free snack or something, like whatever. Right. Is that, what is that kid? How is that kid going to perform?
He's going to do the checklist, right?
Yeah, he's probably going to be fine. Yeah, he'll do fine. Like he'll do the checklist and he'll do the things. He'll get his pay and then move on. I said, now, we were talking about, kind of this task and purpose. What I make him do is I made him say, okay, give me an idea of what your purpose as a property might be. Ironically, as we started going down purpose, nobody mentioned golf. They manage golf properties.
Right.
But the way I do it is I say, what's your purpose? And even if they started with golf, I say, okay, well, why is that important? And I tell them it's the Y times 7 principle. I don't know if that's, it's actually 7 or whatever. Right? I say that because 7's a good number. But if you ask why, about 7 times, you kind of get down to the real nuts and bolts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of what's really happening. So he says, anyway, so we dig down a little bit. And one of the properties managers was talking about that they feel like their purpose is to build community. Right? To bring people together and build community because they live in a smaller town. And so this golf course is a place where people can come and be in community with one another and how that will enhance their town that they live in, the place where they live. And I said, I think that's wonderful. Okay. So now if that is your purpose and you recognize that as the big overarching thing that you're trying to accomplish, that is the calling that your property has, right? Yep. Now, if you go to Cart Kid and you say, Cart Kid, here at, Shady Acres Golf, right? We believe that community and building community and giving this, first-class experience and all this kind of stuff that builds community is the most important thing that we can do. We want people to come here and to feel welcome. We want them to feel like they're home. So with that in mind, here's your minimal list of duties, right? Do this. Mm-hmm. But remember, aside from this list, even like, look, this is just the list of suggested duties, right?
Yep.
But outside of that, remember, you're here to build community and give people a first class experience. And so I said, so now when the kid walks by, the green at hole number 9, and he says there's weeds, is kid more likely to walk out there and pull a weed than he was when you were just telling him, here's your list of crap and I'll give you 1050?
Yeah.
And they were all like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right? So I said, that's how Cart Kid goes from, being just a checklist, does this thing, to being a kid who owns Cart World and becomes a leader, because now he has a purpose. So now he can look at his fellow cart kids and go, fellas, we got to pull weeds too.
Yeah.
That's not part of our duties. No, it's not part of the list of our duties, but what's our primary duty? And they build community, make, okay, well, in that case, then that makes sense. And I said, now, do you see how having that makes all the decisions that you make easier?
Mm-hmm.
Like you eliminate so many things, right? You were talking about you recognize chaos and how do you eliminate it? How do you get around it? If it's not on the, if it doesn't fit in the mission, maybe it's not mine. Maybe it's somebody else's to deal with. I don't have to worry about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I was, before you went into that story, I was going to kind of ask about the leader's, I don't know if it's responsibility or ability to eliminate chaos for other people, right? That they're leading. And I think you kind of answered it in your story, right? That if I'm vaping, well, then it should be really,
I did throw that up there, a big slide. And I was like, now we're going to vape. And they were all like, what?
Yeah.
Anyway,
but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Q-Sort vape,
Right.
then in theory, I'm helping the people I lead to know what they can eliminate or what they should include, or right? Is that?
I think so.
Yeah.
Right. I think so. I think that's part of you're right. I think that's part of your job. I think that's part of the articulation, right?
Yeah.
Is having that vision so clearly in your mind and speaking it or writing it or whatever, but communicating it so clearly and so simply to the people that you're leading that it doesn't leave room for, these other things. It just focus. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
I had an interesting thing happen at work recently. So I'm in this, a different role. I've got more responsibility, and
Mr. Manager.
We're just, I'm a master of the custodial arts now. But it was really cool. So now I'm in charge of this process, and I had somebody come to me and say, hey, we got, one of the ways we could make this better would just be create some clear expectations, right? There are, maybe 4 phases in this process, and nobody really knows what we mean when we say, review, right? And so I was like, okay, well, let's how do we want to define it? And worked with a couple of people and then communicated that out. And then as we went along this process, the execution, the data that we have at the end that shows sort of how much of this work we completed was like better than it's ever been. And it just was amazing to me how just like a really simple thing, when we just took one phase, we didn't do the whole thing yet. We're kind of going one chunk at a time, but just a really simple, like, here's what this word means, right? We've talked about that, like language, and then here's what should happen inside of here because, and kind of tried to tie it back to the vision. And so it was cool today. We had an all staff meeting, got to kind of celebrate just like, look at how effective you guys were, and but it was interesting to me how simple it was. And sometimes in like a leadership position, you'd look at something and you think like, oh man, we got a lot of work to do. And it actually was way simpler than I initially thought it would be.
I think it's funny too. And we talk about, we've been talking about zebra jockey stuff. And one of the chapters in there is razors. Right. And I'm not going to go into a whole thing of it because I didn't write it. And so I'm not the expert. Right. Not that we need experts. Wait, we talked about that before too. No, right. But essentially the idea in there, kind of is that it's like shaving things down to their most simplest element so that then you can make decisions easier. You can get the stuff done better, and the tendency of man and of leaders, especially, sometimes they don't know what to do. And so they just keep doing stuff.
Yeah.
In the hopes that, and they add more stuff because it's like we're making a rule. And I told him this in the conference too. I was like, look, I'm not opposed to rules when they make sense, when it's useful. But what I find most often is a man made a rule because he wasn't willing to lead.
Mm,
Right. And
yeah.
so, and a rule typically only begets a couple more rules to enforce that rule. And so pretty soon you're just really overcomplicating this process because you're trying to eliminate the pain from it.
Yeah.
But leadership is pain. Like
Yeah.
it is a hard, difficult, painful thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I have to make difficult decisions. Some of them I do not like. Many of them do not make me popular.
Yeah.
Right. I do not like that. That is a hard thing for me as a people pleaser, guy, need for approval guy, right?
Yeah.
I have to work to fight that all the time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at it now, right? Better than I used to be. I'm
Yeah.
not perfect at it by a long shot. I still struggle sometimes, right? But that's the idea is like I think you made a good point. Like I, as the leader, part of my job is to look at the problem ahead of us and go, okay, rather than complicating this with steps and things, like what if we shave this down to just the absolute essentials? What happens then?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, um, by doing that, you do reduce the chaos. You do make it so, but that's one of the things that's tough as a leader, I think, is to sit and go, A, am I able to identify what that simple thing is?
Right.
And B, do I have the stones to shave it down and put everybody through the tough work to get there?
Yeah.
And then the third is, the fortitude to enforce and to move forward,
Yeah.
despite the opposition.
Yeah. The other thing that is interesting to me is how I heard this analogy somebody was sharing, like if you put a bunch of kids on a soccer field with no fences, they kind of hover to the middle. They just play in the middle of the
We
field.
call it herd ball, right? I mean,
Right. But as soon as you put up fences, which I think are guardrails maybe, or standards could be,
mm-hmm.
then once you put up those fences, then they play using the whole field. And so it kind of made me think, gosh, there are some places.
Wait, is that real?
Yeah.
So say it again. So on the soccer field is what I
If
think I
there
heard.
if there are
Little
no,
kids.
I'll have to find the study. Yeah, it was
No, but seriously, no fences, and they all kind of
hover towards the middle.
they're worried
Yeah, and then
about something.
when you put
But the
fences
fence
in
is up,
place,
then
they use the whole field because the boundaries are clear to see.
Interesting.
And so
Yeah.
to me, it reminded me of standards, right? Or, guardrails where we create those so that, kind of, okay, I'm bumping up against this. Now I need to get back over. But, just thinking about navigating chaos and sort of, thinking about like, if everything is chaotic, and I try to control it like in this really tight space, but if I realize what my mission is and kind of where I'm operating, then I just kind of let that stuff bounce off me, right? Because I recognize, hey, that's a distractor or chaos.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but I think that's how I'm
some of
seeing it work.
some of those things, like I think it is a distractor that then may induce chaos potentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Because chaos, I think, is a state. It's not doesn't have to be a noun. So I guess it can be, but it's like sometimes it's anyway.
Could be a cousin. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. The other question I was gonna kind of get your thoughts on, because I think you know, I don't know, in F3, like we have a lot of built-in things that are designed to teach guys some of these principles, like, and we've talked a little bit about before, like showing up to and being sort of having to surrender the morning workout. Like I had a buddy of mine, I'm EH, and he's like, well, what's the workout tomorrow? And I'm like, no clue. Like I won't know.
Oh no. Yeah.
But I don't know. Are there other things that you feel like within F3 that maybe we kind of do to help guys lead or think in this sort of space, like to either maneuver through chaos or surrender control?
Sure. We do it at 5:15 in the morning.
Mm.
It is dark. I can't tell you the number of times I've eaten crap, because I didn't see, whatever. Well, hard, bit it. I got this lovely present from a dear friend of mine. But the watch I had just before this was still a pretty new watch. And I still wore it, even though it was jacked up. But like I ate it one morning hard, on the sidewalk, little raised portion, whatever, unfamiliar territory, and I'm not, I'm a little bit of like, my cadence is kind of a little bit more of a shuffle. Like I don't raise my feet super high anymore. A lot of it's because I'm trying to minimize impact on my knees.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm good for one of those probably once every 4 to 6 months or so. Like I'll just die. Right?
Did you meet Khakis when you were here?
Yeah.
You had to
Yeah.
make Khakis is notorious for
Is he Norton?
falling. Khakis, if you're listening, I love you, brother. But Khakis is the guy that will fall. You go to help him, and he's like, "Get away from me!" He's like,
Every time.
I didn't fall.
I will lay on the ground, and they'll be like, "You okay? Get out of here! Keep running! Do not come back for me!"
Yeah.
I've had to humble myself on that
me,
one.
right?
That's right. Exactly. I don't want your pity run back.
Right. Yeah.
I get so mad. Like I don't know why that is either.
Yeah.
And this is serious. So now we're off on a tangent, but so a guy who runs our Thursday AO, one of our Thursday AOs, we got like 6 around here, but it is known. It's the whole point is like a 3-mile minimum. Like you've got to at least cover 3, during the workout. And so it's, so run heavy. And I go to that one pretty typically, and I ate it. I mean, hard one morning, and usually when that happens, like especially for me, so 2 things happen. One, I get embarrassed, which frustrates me. Right. And this is probably, I don't even know, maybe it was only even like 6 months ago, so it wasn't even like that long ago. And the second thing that happens is I lay there for a second because I want to see, like, am I hurt?
Yeah. Did I break something?
Yeah. I'm at this age now where I'm like, did I injure myself? I'm not sure. Hold on. No, okay, I think I'm okay. Like, did I twist anything? Is anything broken? Yeah. So I'm laying there for a second, and a couple of these guys, him being one, stops, and he's just like, "Hey man, you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm good. Keep going." He's like, "No, let me help you up." I said, "Keep going." I was just having a bad morning too. Like sometimes I get grumpy in the morning, right? And anyway, so and he like 2 or 3 more times, maybe only 2 more times, he said something about, "Hey, like, come on, man, we're not going to leave you behind." And I just kind of bit his head off. And I was a little bit rude. And I was like, I don't know what the freak is so confusing about what I'm saying, right? This kind of thing.
Yeah.
And for like, I don't know, a couple weeks after that, I just kind of avoided him because I felt kind of stupid.
Yeah.
About how I'd acted. And I was annoyed at myself. And so then I was annoyed at him, and I was just like, "Nyeh," right?
Yeah.
Well, finally I go and I realize, I think about it a little bit more, and I don't know, probably somebody in my shield lock said something too. I don't remember because they were there, but, or a different buddy. I feel like somebody said something to me that kind of made me think that I probably should, not be a baby. And so I had to go back, and I was like, "Hey man, this guy's name's NASA." And I was like, "Bro, I know in my heart that all you're trying to do is help me because you love me and you care about me and you're my brother. And so I'm sorry I acted like a real jerk." I gave him a big hug, and we've been totally good, ever since. And I've decided, like I really had to kind of look and go, what is that about?
Yeah.
Like, why am I being that way?
Yeah.
What is it in my mind that causes me to feel that? And why am I letting that, come down, or like, think those things and, causing me to feel those things. Right. And, I think what I came down to was like, there was just even these just like small behaviors, little things like what, I don't remember if we talked about this directly, but like I changed what music I listened to on the way to a workout and what music I listened to just kind of in general.
Yeah.
I wasn't listening to anything horrible.
You still like 90s rap?
Or sometimes, or a lot of like 90s metal, like 80s, 90s metal, like a lot of Metallica, and that kind of stuff, where it's like, because I was trying to get myself like amped up and psyched up for the workout. Well, what I realized is all that's doing is like, it was making me psyched up and just angry.
Yeah.
And so I would show up to the workout grumpy because I'm already thinking like Master of Puppets, like.
Yeah. Now you're just all Beethoven and Bach, right?
No, it's all worship music.
Oh yeah. I do the same.
Yeah. It's all worship music. And you know what I've found is that just by changing that one habit, my whole outlook on life has really softened.
Yeah.
And especially going to a workout where I'm prone to that sort of behavior to begin with. Not so much after 7 o'clock. When the sun's up, I'm delightful.
Yeah.
But before the sun is up, a little dicey sometimes,
Yeah.
And I realized that like I was carrying that around a lot, and I kept feeling that. And then guys knew it, and it was getting obvious, that that I had this sort of bad behavior sometimes, and so guys would kind of be real gentle, like, don't, if they saw me in the six or going down or something, they'd be like, just keep running, just leave him for dead, it doesn't matter, go,
Right.
and but just doing these little things, like just small behavior changes, right?
Yeah.
To make those, and I don't remember why we got on this topic exactly, but that is an important piece, though, I think, for me, of reducing chaos,
Yeah.
right? And making sure that I'm being the contented leader that I'm supposed to be, and that I can maintain the consistency that I'm supposed to maintain as a leader. And
Yeah.
that's another thing that was always tough for me too, is it's like the guys in your local region, you're the Nantan of the nation, right? Now, uh, we both know that's not as big a deal as, but it's not a small deal, right?
Right.
But like the guys here locally could not possibly care less. Like they do not care. But until I act like a jerk.
Oh yeah.
And then suddenly they love to point it out. And they're like, some that, like, right. And so I realized, okay, you kind of always got to maintain this, right? And you can't just act like a jerk. Like you just can't be that way.
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel like it's a chaos reducer by, simplifying some of those things.
Yeah, it's interesting because I guess if you just look at the 5 core principles, those are all, in a sense, sort of helping us deal with chaos, right? Outside, being early in the morning, and then just sort of learning
Every
how
bit of it.
you respond, and then what
I
can
mean,
you put in place to simplify.
every bit of it is kind of unknown in its
Yeah.
own way, right?
Yep. Yep.
Like the workout itself, the what you do on the way. I mean, somebody could you could hit a deer. I got pulled over one morning,
Mm. Yeah,
and
me too. Yeah, and then I tried to EH the cop, but he didn't come.
he's like, I know who you people are. That's what he said to me, and I was like, I know, buddy. He's like, because he's like, there are runners out here, and I was like, well, and he's like, you're one of them,
Yeah.
and I'm like, yeah, yeah.
We haven't started yet, clearly.
Yeah. Well, I was like, you're making me late. He's right there. Like I could see the parking lot from where I was supposed to. And you know what it was? I didn't even break the speed limit. I just pulled out too quickly, and he didn't like that.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, "Ah, it was too fast. You could have hit somebody." And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
5 o'clock in the morning. But anyway,
What do you think it is that makes? Because it's like we tend to make things more complicated than they need to be, right? And I think if I'm, and we'll probably dive deeper into the razor in a future episode, but like the simplification piece, like I don't know, even when I feel like I've simplified things, then like I'll find a way to make it more difficult, or even in F3, right? Sometimes it's like, there's sort of this blueprint or this framework that works when we follow it, and then we try to like do something and make it over. I don't know. Like, why do you think we are
it's so
driven to
funny.
do that?
Like, I think it's a function of a couple of things. And I remember early on, OBT saying to me one time, like we were watching, a bunch of guys doing stuff, right, and decisions they were making. So, and it was essentially around kind of how they were trying to run their regions and stuff like that. And he just goes, "What are the men thinking?
Yeah.
Like, what are these people thinking?"
Yeah.
And I go, "Well, OBT, I think they're thinking that you freed them to lead."
Oh, yeah.
And so they're kind of, feeling their oats a little bit on something like that. And he was like, and I'm like, we can't control them. That's kind of the point, like that's the whole, but at the same time, like even the frustration, the guy who, one of the founding members, right? He's like, but I think that the reason that happens, that guys have a tendency to overcomplicate or to try and build onto or add to or things, I think it comes from a couple of places. One, I think it comes from what I just said, right? A guy realizes, wait, I can be in charge. I'm free to lead. I'm empowered.
Mm-hmm.
I can exert my individual initiative. Now, what they realize then is it's kind of like the first time, I don't know, it's like a little kid, right? The first time they do something for themselves, they want to do it 1,000 times, and they're like, "Dad, watch this. Dad, watch this. Dad, watch Dad.
Yeah.
And so they keep doing it because and the more decisions that they start getting better at, and as soon as they realize they have the freedom to, do whatever it might be, sometimes they really push the edges of that to see like, well, how is this going to go? So I think that's part of it. I think a guy who's been sitting underneath the weight of non-decision and inability to make a decision because he feels hopeless, like in his job, let's say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless he's the boss,
Yeah.
unless he's the CEO, like he's subject to the decisions of other people.
Yeah.
And so as soon as you realize I can make my own decisions, do it my own way, I think he wants to exercise that. So I think that's one thing. I think another thing that gets a guy adding to is you kind of get a guy that once he's done that a little bit and he starts to realize that like, I feel better about myself and I feel like I'm strong. And you know what? I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty awesome. And I am. And you know what? And I don't like the way those guys are doing things. So rather than vape, because that's difficult,
Mm-hmm.
I will control. And so the way I will control is I will keep adding to things. I'll make up more stuff. I'll, overcomplicate I'll tell you something, and I get distressed sometimes when I see it, but there are guys, they have all kinds of rules and practices and things that they've implemented at their AO that they're pretty rigid about, pretty insistent about. Well, that's not the way, this is the way we do things over here.
Right.
And you go, hey, if it's accelerating men better than the other way, drive on.
Then let's do it. Yeah.
I'm not going to get in your way, man, because I don't know your guys and I don't know your situation. I don't know what's happening over there, right? So I'm going to trust you as the leader. But as soon as I see that it's clearly decelerating your guys, I'm probably going to step in and try and help. And the way I'm going to try and help is a couple of ways. One might be, I go, guess what? You're fired. I can't fire anybody. I'm joking. I can't, right? But I might encourage that guy and say, hey, you need to really take a hard look at yourself. If he's unwilling and there's a lot of guys complaining, I've told many guys this. I'm like, okay, well, here's what you do. If you're really unhappy with the guy who's leading and you've done everything you know how to talk him through it and to help him understand that what he's doing is not helpful and that you're frustrated, you guys are all struggling and it's not growing or whatever it is, all these things. And here's what you do. The only thing you can do, I think, is you take a shovel, okay, and you tape a flag to the end of it and you walk to the opposite end of the parking lot and go. Can't stop you.
Yeah.
Can't stop you, and then do it better. And then hopefully persuade him to come along with you. And if not, that's just the way it is, man. And to me, that's the beauty of F3. So I think some guys, want control so badly and they see an opportunity and so they try to take it. And then the third thing, I think when guys do that and they overcomplicate things, they are just deathly afraid.
Yeah.
I really believe that they're afraid of themselves. They're afraid of trusting other men. And so therefore, rather than trust them and allow for chaos and embrace chaos and allow for failure and embrace failure, then I think they find themselves trying to, because of their fear, it's not because they're control maniacs or whatever, but because of their fear of it going wrong or poorly or their inability. Sometimes it's general ineptness. They just don't have the ability, don't have the skills. They've not practiced enough to have the skills to vape a guy, really truly give him vision and articulate it, right? They don't have that. And so they add other things. They want to try and make it different, you know?
Well, and we kind of talked about in the last episode, this idea of dominion, over control. And to me, dominion is more of a term that aligns with my mission. And so then, and I don't know, we have at least 40 episodes on mission. So it to me, it takes it back to that of like, if I'm unclear on my mission, there's all these other dominoes that come into play. And I think for me, like when I'm clear on my mission, I'm like, well, that's really cool that guy's doing that thing, but I don't know. I no longer do I feel like, well, I need to do that too, or I need to do that better. Cause that could be his mission, but it's not in mine, and I think, so we just encourage guys to really like truly get into that. Cause I do think there's a lot of connection there of the things that we let we let things, we get into this mindset of chaos and, in picturing myself driving this little Prius around the airport parking lot. In that moment, I was starting to get stressed. It was Sunday. I got to get home for work. I had some stuff I wanted to do. And, ultimately
I have stuff I want to do.
Right.
I can't be bothered to.
Exactly. I don't have time to sit in this airport, but it was,
Dear Transportation Administration, I need you to bend to my will instantly.
Yeah. But anyway, so I think it was just the mission piece is really interesting to me. And I don't know, I think I was looking at another question that somebody had sent me in in Slack, and talking also about confidence, right? And so, I won't say the guy's name, but he's been in F3 for 4 years, been a site Q, Weasel Shaker, first FQ. Leading in F3 has been great. However, leading in the rest of my life has not been so great because I lack confidence in other parts of my life. So he's kind of talking about, maybe another topic could be
ALQ, first FQ lacks confidence?
Yeah. Yeah. So he's talking about, how to be more confident and figure out what you stand for and what you believe, and so I think, I don't know, like that seems like something maybe we can kind of continue to dive into, because I do think like we teach men to lead, and then it's like, how do we then help them develop some of these pillars that really make their continue to accelerate the effectiveness of that leadership? I don't know if you have any thoughts there, but
No, I like that as a thought, and I think we should dive into that. I mean, obviously we don't have time to get into it a bunch today, but there is definitely some truth to that, and that's one of the things we've been talking about some in our leadership development at the nation level, right?
Yeah.
Is trying to figure out like what kind of workshopping or material or something can we provide a guy to sort of get him started on that journey of putting those things in place, so he can apply the things that he's learning and doing in the gloom a little bit more to his own individual life, right?
Mhm.
I mean, if he's been a site Q and a first FQ, like probably doesn't have a big problem standing up in front of people and leading a workout.
Right.
Now, I would think he's probably done it dozens, if not more, times, right?
Yeah.
And so why hasn't that translated over into real life? That would be something interesting to understand, so that maybe we can help him, sure, but then there might be things that we learn there that we can, teach to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, at some point it's, you teach a guy to quit playing with the scissors and cut the crap. Basically, I'm not afraid to take a stand. Everybody come take my hand. Uh,
I have a funny feeling it's not Geddy Lee.
It's not Geddy Lee. It's Eminem. And man,
I don't know who it is, but it's not Geddy Lee.
as I was trying to piece together some Eminem lyrics, there's some explicit lyrics in there that I found myself not willing to say on the air here. But anyway,
That's probably
not Geddy
good.
Lee for sure. But
Not
Eminem
Geddy
is a guy who's not afraid, right? Maybe.
Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know him.
I don't know him.
Yeah. No, this is really good. I think I just this has been so helpful for me. And I guess the other thing that I learned when I was in that moment, it wasn't a Prius, by the way. It was like some sort of Volkswagen car.
No, I really need it to be a Prius. So we're going to tell the
it should
story.
be a Prius, but
yeah, that's what it. Yeah.
What I was learning in that moment, there's like this, it's always, at least for me, the distance between knowing and doing, and so then, and I love every time I ask you, like, well, how do you do that? Well, the first step is to do it once and then do it again, and so I think just, I think realizing the opportunities within just day-to-day life within posting at F3 that we have to really work on some of these things, right?
I'm glad you said that. And I think you make a good point in that, guys, maybe it would be useful. I don't know if I've ever really thought of it this way or to this degree. I don't think I've articulated it this way, but maybe it's useful to make F3 your laboratory. Like we say all the time, it's a safe place to fail.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what we mean when we say that is, if you screw up leading a workout, it's not that big a deal, right? The world doesn't end.
Right.
But maybe that is a great place. You said something about like, before we started, you said like, maybe you have some ideas and we'll try and workshop them kind of on, in the work, whatever. Right. And I don't know if we did that today, but, but guess what? You probably could do it in F3.
Yeah.
Do it at a workout. Like have some ideas, talk through some things. That's where your shield lock's for. That's what, like embrace the things that are here. The tools are all here. The framework is here.
Mm-hmm.
Like go ahead and use it. Don't be afraid to use it. Don't be afraid to screw it up. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask us questions about it.
Yeah.
Dude, I literally think I might be the easiest person in F3 to find.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I promise you, like, look, as you might imagine, I get a fair amount of messaging and texts and, Slack messages or whatever, emails and all this kind of stuff. I answer all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I answer all of them.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you right now, everybody on my shared leadership team, Power Clean and Camo and all those guys, same.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
Yeah.
It's not like we're up here in some kind of ivory tower going like, ugh, deal with the, don't we have like a second or third layer of leaders that can deal with these peasants? Like, what? No. I mean, we create some of that layering because we want to give you more access and more proximity to faster
Right.
answers sometimes, and maybe even better answers sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But dude, there is no magical nothing here,
Mhm.
right? Ask the questions, take advantage, fail. It's the most wonderful framework that has been created. It really is. I mean, and Dredd will say, well, actually, first he would say, honored, right? That's the
Yeah.
first thing he would say. And then he would say, I didn't come up with it. I just reworked it and codified it a little bit different or something. Like that's what he
Yeah.
would say. And yeah, it's timeless principles and all that kind of stuff, sure. But for us, for men right now in this stage of life, boy, it sure fits. It
Yeah.
really does work. It
Yeah.
really does work if you'll work it.
Yeah, and I think along with that, I love the laboratory idea. Just that word, right, just has a really unique connotation with it. I also just think too, like outside of F3, one of the things on this vacation, I was with a bunch of people that they're living a different lifestyle than me, right? They're still partying and doing all sorts of stuff. And initially, I was
At
like,
40?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
bro.
initially, I was like, I don't want to be a part of that. But I actually got to lead a workout down there. And I was like, we're gonna do this F3 style, so I'm gonna give you a COT and we're gonna pray at the end. And the number of doors that opened up for conversations, and then how it opened my eyes to like, I'm not. I didn't come into this thinking these were all people I should be giving away F3 to, right? And so just remembering
Mm.
like some of those things when I surrendered control and I went down there,
Mm-hmm.
God used that, and I totally underestimated that. And now I've got, at least two of the guys that were down there that live in Omaha are, I'm like, okay, when are we going to work out? They're, they want to come out. And so I think just being open to that too, I think, cause we got to keep giving this away. I think it's just, that laboratory piece, right? We all need that, so anyway, I love it.
Yeah. Love it.
All right, brother. I think we're, the way we end these now is just, and we're out.
Oh, no.
No.
Don't do that. No.
Good to see you, man. Have a good
See
day.
you too. All right.
Scars on our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop, yeah. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah. Every man's got a story. We've been broken, we've been bruised, but we rise again and we don't get to choose. Through the fire, through the fight, every man's story burns in the night. Scars on our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. On a story to tell, from the valley low to the mountaintop yell. Every man's got a story inside. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop yell. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah, every man's got a story. Every man's got a story. Voices rise like thunder, they roll. Truth in the pain, it's shaping the soul. Chains may rattle, but they break in time. Every man's story is yours and mine. From the struggle to the glory, every man's got a story. In the dark or in the light, we keep marching through the night. Every man's got a story inside. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop hill.